for joining me. I'm Anjanette Levy, and we are live outside the courthouse here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where the trial of Alec Baldwin is underway. We are on a long break after a very dramatic morning here. With me is John Day. He's a defense attorney here in Santa Fe. John, thanks for being with us. Heather Hansen is back at the home base in New York in the studio. And it's just been a crazy day, let me tell you all. It's been a nutty day. It started with a lot of things going on. The defense filed a motion seeking to dismiss this case, saying that the prosecution did not turn over evidence that they believe is exculpatory, meaning it would help Alec Baldwin. And they said, you know, enough is enough. There have been enough problems in this case, and this is what they're telling the judge. There have been enough issues in this case. Judge Marlo Summer, you have given the prosecution chance after chance after chance. You have to dismiss this case. And this is really all over 4 rounds that were turned into law enforcement back in April or so by a man who is a friend of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's father. And so this man, Troy Teskey, who is a former police officer, walked into the sheriff's office and said, here are these 4 rounds. I think you should look at these. These might have something to do with the rust set. You might have been duped. And so there was a report taken of this a month later, a report written, but it wasn't placed in the rust file. And then these bullets, these rounds, are sealed up in an envelope and then put somewhere else. And so the defense is saying this was buried. The prosecution is saying, I've never seen this stuff until this morning. So there's been a lot of back and forth. There was going to be a motion hearing about this. Then we had a break. The jury was sent home for the day. We had a break, and the motion hearing was supposed to continue. Then the prosecution and the defense were huddled out in the hallway talking. And it appears possibly that they might be working out a deal. We don't know that for certain, but it's a possibility. What else could be going on? Because they could have resumed this motion hearing about 45 minutes ago, and that didn't happen. As we always do on these big breaks here, when we're covering these big trials, we're going to be taking your questions. So keep those coming in to us on YouTube, X, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll get to as many of them as we can. So let's get right to the questions. We have one from Jada Hare from YouTube. How did Hannah set herself up? I don't know how Hannah set herself up. Well, I don't think she did.
She's sitting in a women's prison for 18 months, so you know, that's where she is. I don't know that a setup is necessarily what was occurring. She was taking the brunt of the punishment in this case.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to you, Heather Hansen, on this one. Stephanie AI from YouTube asks, I always thought Seth Kenney, and Seth Kenney is the owner of the prop company, PDQ. I always thought Seth Kenney was greasy when it came to the bullets. Why does that matter for Baldwin? So explain that to us, Heather. Why does this matter when it comes to these bullets?
Because if Seth Kenney did something with the bullets, and the allegation that the defense is trying to infer, if not straight out say, is that he did do something with the bullets to prove a point that the set was unsafe. And if he did, then that would have been, as the defense has said, an intervening cause. It would have been something that would have been to blame for this death and not Alec Baldwin. It's a little bit of a gray area because Alec Baldwin still did allegedly pull the trigger. That's the claim in the case, but it is a big deal, and it is a big part of what is going on today with this motion. What happened with that ammunition, and was Kenney doing something, as this viewer asked, a little greasy?
Yeah, and you know, there's a point that the defense has been trying to constantly make here, and it was that Seth Kenney was just way too helpful. He was way too helpful. He brings live ammo into the sheriff's office. Look at my live ammo. And then when he comes down to the, when they go down to Albuquerque to do the search warrant, to execute the search warrant, he's like, yeah, look around here, look around here. And there was also some talk about how he did have live ammo. It's all a little confusing, actually, but there was some live ammo from the set of 1883, which belonged to Hannah's dad. It's very confusing, but really the big kerfuffle is about these 4 rounds that were turned in after Hannah's conviction. I want to go to Dutch Merrick now. Dutch Merrick is an armorer. Dutch, thanks so much for being with me. The prosecutor, this is from Stephanie A on YouTube, the prosecutor is saying none of those bullets match the bullets that killed Halyna. Why does it matter beyond they were negligent in filing?
Well, it seems that some of those bullets may indeed match the bullets that were on set. I think the fact that the 6 bullets found on set that happen to be identical visually may be a bit of a tangent, because it seems that this fellow, what's his name, Troy Teskey, who's a police officer, brought in these rounds to the sheriff's station saying, hey, these came from Seth Kenney. They came from the same batch of ammunition, and they're mixed. So I think that the guy that loaded the rounds was mix and matching different bullets and cases and primers, and this proves that they don't all have to match to be relevant. They very much could have come right from the same initial source. And what bothers me most, I think, is that the prosecution has avoided tracking down the origin of the original bullet that killed this person. Like, that is the essence of the entire case, is where did the bullet come from? And I think you're right that Seth Kenney has, or someone had said it moments ago, that Seth Kenney has been sort of squirming around this. I think he's really been leading the investigation. And I see that when I watch the videos of him being interrogated, he's leading that investigator right down a path that steers everyone away from him.
That's a very interesting take from you, as somebody who deals with firearms and bullets and all of those things. This is another question we've got from X now. I like to call it Twitter, the original, but X. At JC Taylor asks, this one's for you, John. Is it just me, or does anyone feel like this entire process is mismanaged? Even the judge seems to be confused on how to proceed with certain things.
Well, this is not unusual in trials like this when, you know, there's arguments over discovery, arguments over what was disclosed, not disclosed. I mean, this judge is trying to run a pretty tight ship, and I think she's done a really good job. And again, I've appeared in front of her a number of times and been yelled at by her a number of times. But I think
she seems to like to yell.
Well, but she's good at this, and she does keep things on track. And I think that's what the trial has benefited from, her approach to this. But there's a lot of issues, and the defense is making a lot of headway with the discovery issues and what has and has not been disclosed.
Mm-hmm. She does like to run a tight ship. And, you know, one thing that we saw that was very interesting this morning that I've never seen is a judge come off the bench, put on the blue gloves, open a bag of evidence, and spread out the rounds, and everybody's inspecting the rounds. I've never seen that. But she did say, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. So she was going to continue with this motion hearing, and then she didn't. Let's go to our next question. Lisa from YouTube asks, didn't Baldwin hire all these people, including the rookie armorer? That's a good question. Heather Hansen, what do you make of that?
It's a great question, and it's a big part of the civil case. But here in this criminal case, his role as producer is not relevant according to the judge's ruling, and it's an appropriate ruling. Remember, he wasn't the only producer. If we're going to hold producers criminally responsible, all of the producers would have to be held criminally responsible. Civilly responsible, yes, and that's why we see all the settlements, not just with Alec Baldwin, but with the other producers, the other people involved as well. It's a great question. It's a question so many of us are asking, but there's a big difference between the standards in criminal cases, the elements of a case in a criminal case, and a civil case. Civilly, they have been brought to task, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is still another civil case. Actually, there are several, I think, still outstanding, including the one filed by the family of Halyna Hutchins, her family members in Ukraine. So Gloria Allred, she's here somewhere. So we still have that suit that's pending as well. Let's go on to our next question. Dutch, this one's a good one for you. Baltic Topic asks, why do armorers not make it mandatory for everyone, including actors, to check every firearm as soon as they are handed it?
Well, you know, we've been doing this for 100 years, and we've gotten a process that is very efficient and gets this done in a way that makes everybody comfortable and safe. Remember, this is an anomaly. This one instance, this one person dying from one live round for the first time, and anyone can remember in Hollywood showing up on a film set, is very, very different than what we do. I work on a show, SEAL Team. We just finished 7 seasons, and over the course of those 7 seasons, we fired off almost 2 million blank rounds, and we do it safely. If we had the time to show every single crew member all the rounds every time, or even every actor, we would never get anything done. So we have a process where the armorer checks the gun, they verify it with the first AD, they can do it in front of the actor if the actor wishes to watch that, but a lot of times the actors are in a character. They don't want to come out of that space. They're ready to act, they remember their lines, they're ready to interact with the other actors, they know their marks, their lighting, all the direction and cues. The last thing they're worried about is, all right, let me get a second set of eyes on that gun. And some actors do. They say, hey, I want to see every round go in, and I get it, and that's perfectly fine. But I think a lot of actors It's not part of the process, and it's not needed the way we do it. We have two sets of eyes making sure it's safe before it ever gets to them.
So you're telling me you, Dutch, as an armorer, do not show the gun to the actor. You show it to two other people who then are part of the process of handing it off to the actor.
It's on a case-by-case basis. I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, when Hollywood was still happening and we were all working and it was in overdrive, I was regular on two shows. One was SEAL Team for CBS, and that's an adrenaline-fueled shoot-'em-up show where there's gunfire galore all the time, combat scenes, helicopters, you know, all sorts of stuff happening. And then the other show I was working on was Euphoria for HBO. And now that show is like teenagers with a drug problem in high school, and rarely would they have guns. When we brought a gun out on that set on Euphoria, we would go through every single beat every time, extra safety meetings first thing in the morning before each scene, anyone that wanted to see the gun. And on SEAL Team, where we're a machine, oftentimes we have 8 armors working, and we might have 30 or 40 people firing guns in one take. It's not practical to stop and try to have the first AD and every actor look at every gun and every bullet. It's not practical. So they trust us, 8 of us, to make sure they're all safe. We put them in the actor's hands. And again, the actor can observe it. I'll never preclude an actor from doing that. And on some shows, they're going to look at every bullet and examine everyone. And on other shows, we're shooting thousands of rounds in a scene. So we do it efficiently. And if they want to see it, they can, but they don't have to. That's the point.
This is a good question for you, John. At Tell the 954-8317 asks, so this evidence that Carrie says she hadn't seen this, etc., does this not only impact Alec's case, but also Hannah's appeal? That's a great question.
Good question, yeah. You know, and it could, because you know, her lawyer has this appeal ready to go. And,
right.
Is this an issue that they should have known about? And does it have any sort of significant impact? We don't know yet the answer to that because we haven't seen how this is going to play out. But I think this very likely could be something that plays a role in the Hannah Gutierrez-Reed appeal.
Yeah, and I want to bring up, just to tag on to that, her lawyer, Jason Bowles, has filed a motion calling for her immediate release, asking for her immediate release based on another issue, the fact that they didn't get Luke Haig, one of the experts for the state, that they didn't get his final August 31st, 2023 report. That wasn't turned over before trial. Apparently, Carrie Morrissey, there was an email where she said, you know, this is basically my fault. I thought that I had gotten it to you and I didn't, or what have you. And he's saying, look, she should be released. We're already appealing. And now this. So it makes you wonder, and I'm going to do some work on finding out whether or not they know about this, about these. I mean, you would think they would know because Troy Teske is friends with Fel Reed, Hannah's father, but did the prosecution tell them about these 4 rounds that were brought in?
There are going to be a lot of appellate issues on her case.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's go to you now, Heather. At Just Chillin' here. How do you become a special prosecutor? Does it require extra training? And can you tell that Morrissey and Johnson aren't, quote, real prosecutors, meaning Carrie Morrissey is not the elected prosecutor or district attorney. She was appointed by somebody to take this case, as was Erlinda Johnson. How does this process work?
Well, usually in a case like this, for sure, they're appointed. And John may be better able to answer this question because it often depends on the jurisdiction. But they're usually appointed because there are so many pieces of evidence, so many facts. It's going to take so many resources that they want to make sure that there are people that are only focused on this. It's another reason why it is so surprising that there have been so many miscommunications, to put it mildly, about the evidence. But John may be able to speak to how it was done in this case, in this jurisdiction, since he's there.
How does it work? Just briefly, John, we got to take a break.
Right. Prosecutors, the DA's office appoints special prosecutors. For some reason, there's a conflict of interest, or there's too much work for them. And that, in this case, there's been a really troubled history. Yeah,
it was a mess in the beginning. There was some stuff going on. The one special prosecutor probably shouldn't have been a special prosecutor because she was an elected official, and then they had the firearm enhancement that shouldn't have been in there. Hot mess. So then they took over. Carrie Morrissey took over. I mean, it was kind of a mess. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. Heather Hansen is here. Dutch Merrick is here, and as is John Day. We'll be right back. I'm Anjanette Levy, and you're watching Law and Crime.